This is Anthony Pascal.
And this is Laurie Elster, and this is the All Access Star Trek podcast. Today, for a return engagement, we have the great Dr. Marie Segal of Creation and the Seventh Rule. Hi, Anne-Marie.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
The reason we asked you here is because we are going to talk about Starfleet Academy. Everyone knows that it premieres next week on Thursday with 2 episodes. So Anne-Marie and I were both not together, but separately at the premiere. It was Tuesday night. Yeah, January 6th. I was covering the red carpet. You were there for the screening. I ended up at the screening too. So we're going to talk about that event. I went to the junket. We'll talk about that. And Anne-Marie and I have both seen the first 6 episodes, and you will get our mostly spoiler-free review.
Amazing.
I've seen 2 episodes. I'm holding off from watching the rest for reasons which we can get into. But we have a spoiler-free review up on the site now, which was written by Ian, but is very good. And Laurie, you had a hand in that as well.
I beefed up the praise because I'm enjoying it so much.
I seriously considered flying out to New York for the event, but I was happy that you were able to do it and had that experience. So what was it like being on actually the blue carpet, not the red carpet, for you guys, and the screening event itself? And how close were you to Stephen Colbert?
Actually, at the screening, which I wasn't supposed to be invited to, and then they did invite us in the end, he was sitting I took a great picture of him, which I've already put on Blue Sky. Because when they announced his name, he stood up and he was so excited and the whole room started yelling. But Anne-Marie, tell me tell me the fan experience, because you were invited to the screening as a fan, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, I've been going to all the New York screenings now for probably since post-pandemic. I go to all of them. And this one was by far my favorite. Well, I mean, it was amazing getting to see the TNG cast at one of the Picard ones. But this one was at the Natural History Museum, which already was like the glam level. And just like, it was so Star Trek. Because like, as you walked in there, you could kind of see part of the exhibit about like the evolution of humankind, and saw some like skeletons. And then you got to walk through this like incredible room of like all these anthropological like treasures from around the world. And then the lighting was amazing. All the Academy signs were amazing. They had those like cherry blossom trees on each side of the doorway as you walked in. There was also a Christmas tree decorated in origami, which I was looking for chickens. I was like, is this on purpose or? But I think that just happened to be there. It was coincidence. But it was just so well organized, and you walked in and like caterers with like these fancy bottles of water were coming out of one of the rooms that was decorated in like constellations, which was like, there were just a lot of like coincidental touches based on where we were. And then I think they had actually like fitted the auditorium that it was in with extra like Dolby Digital.
They brought in extra
sound
equipment, so they actually like refitted the theater, and they did Dolby Atmos for the sound. But I think they brought in other stuff too.
It was amazing. And I mean, the like feeling in the auditorium, so basically like the red carpet or the blue carpet coverage was live streamed in on the big screen. Oh yeah. And it was incredible because like, and there was no like, you have to be in your seats right when you walked in. So we had an hour and 45 minutes of getting to all say hi to each other while this amazing thing was on the big screen. And so like a lot of people who like, I know from STLV and from the New York events, like, because quite a few people had actually flown in. Yeah. So it was just a huge family reunion of fans. I overheard a couple like influencers who were there be like, how do all these people know each other? It was just incredible. And then like, I mean, getting to see everybody, and I'd already seen some of the episodes, so like I was recognizing people on the blue carpet, but what really turned the tide in the room was when Kate Mulgrew walked in, and I noticed her first. I was like, oh my God, look who's here, everybody. And like, we all started like going crazy, and then you could see her talking to the like Bob Picardo, and then separate on the blue carpet right next to them were like Holly Hunter and Paul Giamatti
Holly had so many conversations. We got there are pictures of them, and they did it on the carpet, they did it in the theater, they did it everywhere. And the idea of these two women together, like my head could just explode.
and like they were sitting right in front of each other in the auditorium. It was just so cool. And it's like we had all of this going on, and like as legacy people were walking in and the fashion on the blue carpet. So then like this went on for like an hour and 40 minutes. It was amazing. And just like the atmosphere was so electric. And then we all started getting in our seats and people started walking in and everyone was doing like massive applause. And what was so cute to see was like the camaraderie, especially among the cadets. So like as some would walk in, like all of their peers and like castmates would all cheer for each other. And it was just like lovely to behold. And then what was so much fun as they started doing the announcements, like the Chris Parnell, who's like one of the suits from Paramount
He's the
Plus,
suit who loves Star Trek.
Yes, and I actually was mentioning this to Gary and Adam because in his like preamble introducing Alex Kurtzman, he said that he had sewed his own Star Trek uniforms to go to conventions, which was so adorable. And then Alex Kurtzman came on with Noga Landau, and they just like, I mean, their love of the franchise was so clear and amazing, and talking about the generational love for it, which I'm definitely a product of that since I was 3 watching with my dad.
Aw.
And so that was just like lovely. And their introduction, starting with who was there from Legacy Cast, and just seeing the whole room like burst into applause. I hadn't clocked that Ethan Phillips was there.
He didn't do really the carpet.
Yeah. So cute. And then just like the new people and seeing them stand up for the first time and they're really being like welcomed into the fandom with open arms. And so I'll stop talking. But then the show started and I mean, I'm like, this is my favorite Star Trek since Voyager. I absolutely adore it. And so it was so fun getting to see everybody's reaction. I can't say it.
And it looked gorgeous on that big screen too.
I wish we could
there
watch
were
it all
things
like
I'd
that.
never noticed until I saw it on the big screen. It was unbelievable, like just so many great details. So my experience was different. So I did not get to walk in that way and see all that groovy stuff. We had to go in like a back press secret gray entrance. I was with Cleveland was doing camera for me for Trek Movie, and I was with Tamia and Yvette from the Sci-Fi Sisters, because we always end up next to each other on the carpet anyway. So we were like, we may as well all go in together. So the carpet ran late, but it was great because there was such a feeling of excitement because Holly Hunter and Paul Giamatti and all of that. So there's all this mainstream big press, obviously at the other side. But the carpet was so much fun because of the mix of legacy and new people, which was really, really great. And then like Carice Brooks was the last one on the carpet when the screening was starting. Like I missed all that. So I walked in when Alex and Noga were introducing the people, but she was the last one to stay. They kept trying to drag her away. She was trying to satisfy every single person. So I got her last, and I was such a jerk because they were like, 1 question for you and then one question for the Sci-Fi Sisters, and I asked a follow-up.
Oh my God.
And then Yvette and Tamia were like, you asked 3 questions, Laurie, because then they took her away. But I've made it up to them because the next day I saw Carice at the junket. And after I'd interviewed her at the junket, I'd talk to her a little bit, and I've been talking to her parents. I spent a lot of time talking to her parents who were there, who were delightful. And on my way out, I saw her again. She stopped to give me a hug and thank me. Actually, I wanted to have to tell you a funny thing, which is I just got into the bathroom and I just washed my hands. And as I was leaving, I was like, well, they're not totally dry, but it's fine. They're clean. It's not like I'm going to be touching anybody. And then I walked by her and she grabbed my hand. And then I said to her, I just want you to know I just washed my hands. She goes, I was wondering if this was pee.
Wow.
I was like, it's not pee, I promise you. So
cute.
But like here, I'll give you some of my highlights from the carpet, if you would like. Karim Diane, who plays the Klingon cadet, loves Trek Movie.
Oh my God.
Trek Movie. He goes, you don't know because I'm following through my Finsta. But I love Trek Movie and I read all the stuff and I see what's going on. Gina Yashere was who plays the Jem'Hadar Klingon first officer. Phenomenal. So much to say, so much personality. She was so great. We did not get to talk to Tig, who I don't think she did any carpet interviews. actually. So we got some people. We didn't get others. You'll see the interviews roll out. But I will tell you that after the screening, we were trying to meet up, and Cleveland and I got lost, and we ended up wandering all through the museum by ourselves with nobody there, trying to figure out how to find everybody. It was like that movie, the Ben Stiller movie. So, and then I ended up I stumbled into, I think what was the reception, and then ended up in the bathroom, and I see Celia and Zoe, who's the Betazoid character, Zoe Steiner, and Celia are having this great conversation. And then Gaia, who created the show, walks in, who I am desperate to talk to. And so I'm thinking, you know what I'm going to do is I'll get her in a moment. And even though we're in the bathroom, I'm just going to say, like, I'd love to, here's my card. We'd love to talk to you. Go through PR, but we'd love to talk to you, whatever. She and Celia start having this huge conversation. And I'm hearing production details. Honestly, there was nothing that we haven't already heard, but it was like, oh, we just wrapped production and here's what happened. And then, oh, we're going till February and whatever. And there was no opportunity to not be an asshole and interrupt them. So I did not interrupt them.
Oh, well, that's good of you.
You couldn't, it would have been so rude. Like they were in an exuberant, vibrant, long conversation. So I eavesdropped as long as I could without being weird, and then I left.
I would have never left that bathroom.
I didn't see Gaia do any interviews. Maybe she did some, but hopefully we can get her on the pod because she has an interesting story to tell about creating this show.
I know, and I wanted to hear it. And they came up to us at the beginning on the carpet, and they said, "Oh, Gaia's going to be coming first. She'll be a little early. Do you want her?" And we all were like, "Yes, yes, yes." And then she never came. We were sad, and also we didn't know exactly what she looked like. So every time, like any blonde woman showed up or whatever, we'd all be like, "Is that her? Is that her?" But it wasn't.
Alex, in an interview, mentioned that because they've been working on the show for years. Apparently, the people who made the OC developed a Starfleet Academy show like 4 or 5 years ago, and Paramount decided that they didn't want to do it at that particular time. So, but they had a whole thing going, and Kalinda Vasquez was part of that. And
right.
Kalinda then went on to go work on Discovery, and the project just kind of languished, and then she came in, and Alex is one of the things he really liked about her was she's Italian. I mean, she's worked on a lot of other shows, but she has kind of an outsider's perspective. And he thought that really gave it an interesting angle.
Yeah, I would have loved to have talked to her.
Now you did. I mean, we've already ran a couple of great interviews you did from the blue carpet. You got Tawny to talk about her live action show.
And here's the thing, folks, with Tawny. There's an episode that she co-wrote with Kirsten Beyer. I'm not going to say anything about it except that I loved it. It's my favorite. And I interviewed her extensively about that episode. So after it airs, you will get the rest of that interview and it will be worth it.
Can't wait.
It's so good. She was great.
And you talked to Kate. Did she call you Gloria?
Oh, Captain, my Captain. She did not call me Gloria. And in fact, I have to do a shout out. Because Amy Imhoff, who works with Kate, had texted Robert Picardo and Kate Mulgrew and said, when you're on the carpet, go see Laurie at Trek Movie. So they both made a point of doing it. In fact, Robert Picardo walked up to Sue covering for Trek Core next to me and said, "Are you Laurie?" And she was like, "No." And I was like, "Hi." So I got both of them because of her, which was great. But yes, we talked about Prodigy and we talked about her novel that she's been writing. And we talked about the show that she and Alex had been talking about doing a live action Janeway show. And I wanted an update on why she wasn't doing it yet. So
she said the show that we listeners to this pod will remember that she kind of turned down something back in 2024. She revealed to you, which still doesn't make any sense. She's like, she said it didn't make any sense to her, but it was a Western.
Yeah, she said it was a Western and I didn't understand it. And she was also kind of basically saying, like, she was basically saying, I'm smart and I didn't understand it, so it didn't make any sense. And she is smart, and she didn't say those words, but that was the vibe that I got.
Oh, Yellowstone to the stars?
No. So
weird.
we've got a bunch of interviews with you from the red carpet and from the junket. Those are going to be going up on the site. Can you just tell us one or two things that maybe you remember, like, oh, so-and-so?
I want to give you some junket stuff because that was really fun. That was the next day. So it was like, get home at midnight, upload the videos, jump into bed, go back into the city for another whole round of it in the morning. Also, like the night before, beautifully run, smoothly run, everybody incredibly nice and very, very efficient. And I was told 4 minutes. They group people together. So they're like, oh, Holly Hunter and Paul Giamatti, you have 4 minutes with both. And then, then you have three cadets, you have 4 minutes with all of them, which was crazy. And especially when they say Alex and Noga, who are the showrunners, who I have the most questions for. And as I walked into the room, and this is a beautiful thing about Trek movie, I walked into the room and they said, I was just told, the PR person said, I was just told you should be getting 3 extra minutes. So I was like 7 minutes, which was very exciting. And Alex knows me, of course, at this point. And as I got up to leave, and this is recorded on the video, so we have proof, he said, and we really need to get on your podcast.
Well, there you go.
So you heard it here first, folks, but we will be getting Alex Kurtzman on.
I mean,
can't wait.
Yeah, I'm sure we could think of one or two things to talk to Alex about.
I think so. Couple of the other highlights that were super fun. Like I said, Carissa's parents were there. And as soon as I found out who they were, I went running up to them. And I was like, your daughter is amazing. She's one of my favorites. Her episode is so good. And they came up to me later, and I was talking to them for a much longer time later. But they told me I was the cherry on top of the cake that they've been having, that they were just so happy with the experiencing this whole thing with their daughter, who is, by the way, a dancer. So she comes from a dancing background and was not doing acting, and acting was somewhat new to her. Yes,
what?
She's a dancer.
She's so fantastic.
She's fantastic, but she's
out.
very physical, and she does dance in the show. You see a little bit of that, and she's really good. So I was like, oh, that makes sense. And then when I went in to see Tig couldn't be there, but I had Robert Picardo and Gina Yashere. And when I said to Gina, I'm Laurie from Trek Movie, and we're going to be stalking you for the rest of your life, which I told all the cadets as well, Robert Picardo goes, yes, that's why I know her name. So that was really fun. And this is very random and funny. But all the other journalists were great. Like, you end up sitting with the same people and talking to the same people. I made a friend. I always make a friend. And then this other woman from Telemundo I was talking to, she's obviously on-air reporter. So she's like making sure her hair and everything looks good. And we start talking, and she's so fun. And then she said, I don't know a lot about Star Trek, she said. And she was taking all of the interviews and condensing them into one story. And I said to her, we do the opposite. I'm going to spread it out over months. But anyway. And then she said, I was watching one of the Star Trek movies with my friend. It was the one, I said, Chris Pine. Yes, it had Chris Pine in it. And we were watching it. And I turned to him and I asked when Chewbacca was going to show up. And he got so mad at me that he didn't speak to me for 6 weeks. So then we decided that she should walk into the interview with Alex and Noga and be like, so when is Chewbacca showing up?
Oh my gosh. Is he an instructor?
Yeah, exactly. And then of course,
there is so they released a bunch of promotional videos over the last week, and one of them unmistakably has a Mugatu. It like high-fiving another cadet for like half a second. So, maybe not a Chewbacca, but you are getting, a Mugatu.
But she thought she was getting, R2-D2 and C-3PO. She was very, very confused. I have to say that there were some people who were very well versed in Trek there and some people who weren't, and it was all fine. And of course, Paul and Holly, they were my first interview at the junket, first one of the day for me. So, and you just, it's like this people disappear into a room and it's the secret thing, and then you walk in and they're just sitting there, and they were so wonderful. I'm glad all the stuff was in the morning. Everybody was very fresh, and they served us all an amazing breakfast and amazing lunch for everybody. But
was it exactly as you imagined? Poster behind them, plastic plant to their left?
No, it was green screen.
Oh, interesting.
They did green screen. So, yeah. But they were so lovely. And I mean, imagine what it's like doing a whole day of that. So,
well, after a late night too.
And they were enthusiastic. And Paul, as you'll see when we show the interviews, like at one point I just said to him to intro a question, and I was like, oh, and Paul, you're one of us. And he was like, because he knows he's a big Star Trek fan. So like lots of grinning and smiling. And then can I say one thing that he said in it, Tony, before we air the interview?
Of course.
There was this amazing, very surreal moment where he's describing to Holly how much he loves Avery Brooks as Cisco. And I was like, gosh, I'm sitting in a room with Paul Giamatti telling Holly Hunter about Cisco. It was incredible.
Because that's his favorite show.
I feel like so often fans are like, I watch Kirk and Spock. Like, it's a real mark when they start knowing all the captains.
Oh, no, he knows. I mean, he's the real deal. Yeah. And she's new to it all, but enthusiastic and likes it. And so, but all the cadets are so delightful and sweet and fun and excited. And it just makes you, remember when we were doing the Section 31 red carpet, and you have all these wonderful actors who are so sweet and excited, and it's so sad because you're like, your movie sucks, and you don't want to, you don't say that, and you try to not say like, I don't say anything about the quality of it. I just go, oh, it's fun to see you do this. But with this one, you can tell everybody, oh, I loved it. I love the show. The show's great.
And you were being honest.
And I was being completely sincere because I've now watched each episode twice and the first episode now 3 times because of the screening. And it's eminently rewatchable, which I think is the mark of a good Star Trek show.
Yes. And like we were running out of our count for the pilot number of views on our shared screeners. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to see it again. I can't wait for the premiere. Like other premieres, I've definitely gone and been like, oh my gosh, sitting through this again. Not that I don't love all Star Trek, but like, I truly love this show. I think it's just fantastic, and I love every second.
Well, let's talk a little bit, so let's do our early reviews. As I've said, I've watched the first 2, and that's because I'm focusing on, because they're releasing 2 episodes next Thursday as the premiere. So I'm kind of focusing on those to write those our extensive reviews, and I don't want the others to cloud my judgment, as it were. I want to kind of.
I've missed your reviews. I'm very excited. I love your reviews.
I will say this, and this is the same advice we had for the last season of Strange New Worlds. Don't back-to-back these 2 episodes, even though they're releasing them.
I know.
And, first of all, the pilot is really long. It's essentially like, we used to get, where it's almost a 2-parter. It's about 120 minutes longer. It's really long. So it's like a short movie, and that could have been enough. And the second episode's fine, but it's a totally different thing. So it's just, give yourself a day in between, and we'll probably release our podcast one day apart, like we did with season 3 of. I liked both of those episodes. I liked the pilot more, probably because it's bigger and more expensive and everything,
and works harder.
Yeah, there's just a lot to do in the pilot. But I thought it's an excellent pilot.
Voyager, Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, I mean it's big and it's small at the same time. There's a lot to do because you got to introduce all these characters, and there's a lot of characters, and they all stand out. You could kind of remember, if not their name, you kind of, oh, that's the one who does this, and that's you really get a sense of who they are.
First one, you've got everybody down, I have to say, and they also do enough world building. Just enough to help, because if you didn't watch Discovery, because this is going to be an entry point for some people. Hopefully that's the idea. So if you didn't watch Discovery and you haven't watched any Star Trek, but particularly Discovery, because this is set, right after, in the Discovery timeline, they have to explain the burn and they have to explain the impact that had. And I thought they did it very effectively.
Yeah. I thought we were going to get way down with exposition, and it's just kind of, because I think it's easy for people to get this, like, really bad thing happened. They don't explain what it was, but it was bad.
They don't get into the screaming child.
Yeah, certainly not how it was resolved. This isn't Discovery season 6.
No.
I will say this, that there's a lot of half the people, maybe more than half the people who work on the show worked on Discovery.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't Discovery season 6. There's many Discovery-ish things about it, but many Discovery-ish things that aren't about it. And they didn't make this feel, Discovery, you can't help. There's things that are related. I mean, like you see the little robots from Discovery everywhere. Those robots are everywhere on that ship.
I know. I have to say, they're when I see them, I start going cha-ching, cha-ching,
right? Because they're so expensive.
I start thinking spend your money somewhere else.
Exactly. No, I think it's a solid thing. But I mean, what do you? Let me ask you guys this, because you've seen all 6. How do you feel it flows from a structural point of view and from episode to episode, both the kind of the kind of serialization, the tone of the show, that kind of thing, from episode to episode?
You go first, Anne-Marie.
I love it. It really is I think it's like a Deep Space Nine level or a Voyager later season level of balance. You'll have shows that there's a big arc over this season, but first of all, it's amazing because we're not getting bogged down in any of the arcs. We're not getting bogged down in a sad backstory of one of the characters that just clouds the whole show for him. We're not it's there, but it's not just Discovery. I felt there needed to be a better balance, and it was just these very heavy things weighing down everything. But we also get these one-off episodes that don't really have anything to do with anything, but they're incredible. They're the episodes we love, Data's Day. And you get to learn some very amazing things about the characters. And at the end of them, moving to the next episode, the characters better. So they actually are related. It's just, I think it's a masterfully done. I can't get enough.
Yeah, I tend to agree that. I prefer it episodic, and I think they have immediately found that balance right away, which is that every episode to me is a standalone. Yes, there are going to be some threads, but so far you're this is this one. You're going to be able to call it even if you don't remember the title. And I got to say, I don't love the episode titles.
The titles
weak titles. Yes. I prefer fun, wordy titles. although
yeah, that's my
problematic in our headlines, but still. But it really does. You're this is the one with this guy, and this is the one with that person. And it adds to it every time. And they are balancing. The biggest lesson I think they took away from, I'm going to say Picard and Discovery, is everything doesn't have to be the end of the entire universe.
Yes.
So you can have problems that don't affect billions of life forms or the entire timeline or everything, it's okay to have smaller dangers. They are still felt quite keenly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the first episode certainly, there's a threat. We've already seen the clip with New Sprocket and stuff like that. But yeah, it's localized, as it were. It's not the whole unit. But you definitely, from everything I've seen, the Caleb Amir character and his relationship with Holly Hunter, and this was in our earlier review, that's kind of the big thing, if there is a big thing for the first season.
It's the core. It's the heart of it. That's the core. And there's a lot. I feel each episode is going to, you get complexity to that. And each episode is going to build on that in an interesting way.
I love it so much. There's no one noting the way that sometimes it can, every time they hit the same kind of thing, it develops it and shows it in a new way and layers on the relationship. It's so well done. And they're also doing that thing that Deep Space Nine and later TNG would do, where it's you get a combination of characters, and then in the next episode you get a different combination or slightly different. And it's I just all of Discovery, I was can someone just tell me one detail about everybody on the bridge? I want to know everybody, be obsessed with them all, have them all a part of my life for forever. And it's just when you get them in different combinations interacting, it really makes you learn the character, ins and outs of the character even more. It's fantastic.
A lot of it feels like lessons learned from Discovery. I almost could, Laurie and I talk about how we could feel the hands of the writers, but sometimes I don't mind. Like, there's the first moment when Holly walks into the bridge. I should say it's Captain Ake, right? Half Lanthanite, 424 years old, but it fits with her character. And this, minor spoiler here, but it does fit with the kind of relaxed person that she is, that she goes around the bridge and addresses each bridge officer by name, and they get a little line. Yes. And it helps you as the audience because you're like, oh, that's their name, right? Because so they're not just glorified extras.
Yes.
Now, I don't know how much backstory we're going to get for Becky Lynch's Lieutenant Ya. Not a lot, probably. But, we know her name. And, but you still get a little bit of a sense of her, even from those first 2 episodes and some of the other bridge officers as well. I don't have all their names down.
On the rewatch, I'm starting to get, now that I'm doing the rewatch, I'm starting to catch certain ones' glances and their one line, and then in the next, and I'm even starting to know they're definitely tertiary characters, but they're not being treated like total background actors in a really amazing way. It's just it's.
I
So
will
good.
say the rewatch for me was really important because things that seemed. I don't want to use the word random, but things that seemed not important or significant or resonant the first time, there were some details where I was like, oh, who cares about that? And then when I watched it again, I was like, oh no, there's actually some depth, some interesting depth there. And it is revealing more about character. And if you look carefully, here's what I'm also going to say is don't just look at the main people in every scene. Look and see what people behind them are doing because there are stories playing out in the background.
Yeah, again, this is, Akiva jokes about how they wrote themselves in a corner, on Picard, and they really wish they had a chance to rewrite the beginning of season 1 again because they ended up where they did in the, so there's a lot of lessons learned here.
Yes.
And, the show's not perfect. There's certain things that didn't work for me. I think some fans are, and you guys may have a different opinion of this. I still haven't gotten over some of the kind of casual. I mean, in a way, see, the thing is, I get why they're doing it on many levels, but there's this kind of casual way some of the kids talk and some of the language they use and some of the modern language they use, some of the foul language they use at times that wasn't working for me. But in a way, you get that this is a kids show and this is the first Starfleet class and they're all just starting out. So they don't sound like Starfleet officers yet. They're just joining.
No, and also one of the things Robert Picardo talked to me about at the junket was that he had to change his language too.
Interesting.
Because he said that he said it's different. It's just a different way of speaking. And it doesn't have that Star Trek feel of 90s of his Trek, his era. So although he did say he sometimes made adjustments in terms of what they wrote. I'll say this about the language. At first, that was kind of jarring, taking me out of it a little bit. And now I would say that most of it doesn't. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
The thing, occasionally they'll use an expression that feels like it's going to be dated. I don't think this is giving anything away, but someone says something about maybe we should wait to workshop that. And right. I'm like, that to me feels very of our time. But the swearing and the other stuff somehow started to feel very natural because it's all coming from the kids, I found. And
I haven't heard any F-bombs, though. So
no, not that.
They haven't done a Tilly F-bomb yet.
No, but I mean, I'm just going to swear because whatever. But there's a moment, this is in the first episode, where I'll just say one cadet says to another, and they've been at odds with each other, says asshole 1 to asshole 2, right? And I was like, it's perfect. It's actually just exactly the right thing for him to say at that moment, even though the first time I heard it, I was like, I shouldn't be hearing that word on Star Trek. But you get over it.
Right.
Well, having the Doctor, especially in the Doctor's introduction on this show, he totally does a callback to some of his first lines of Voyager that have become iconic. And that suddenly, the second I heard that, it made everything melt because I was like, you know what? The Star Trek I love is being referenced, and he still is very much the MH. So that kind of made it better since it's the kids. And then there is like in episode 6, I would say like one thing, my two tiny little gripes are like the episode titles are going to be really hard for me to remember because there's a lot of Latin and I'm so into learning all the episode titles. And then there is kind of like a sexually explicit scene. And as somebody who watched TNG, so like when the kind of like sexier scenes would come on as a little girl, like my dad would cover me and my sister and my brother's eyes. And it would always be like a little bit awkward, like Deanna Troy getting her feet rubbed like a very sexual way, stuff like that. And so I would love for the show to be a family watching show. I just think it's phenomenal. And there is a bit of a like sexually explicit scene in episode 6 that as I was watching it, I was like, oh, maybe I'll make sure not to watch the beginning of this episode with my parents when I go home and watch it with them. But aside from that, I mean,
it's interesting how there's some parts of the show that are just like standard Star Trek, and I mean that in the best way. You're on the bridge; it's under attack. They're using the deflector dish and the shields, and they're firing the weapons, and blah blah blah. And it could be any show almost, but it's exciting, and the visual effects are interesting. And then there's another scene, and people are calling each other asshole one another, and it's like these interesting juxtapositions that are clearly choices that they're making. So the whole show isn't one way or the other. It is this balance. And I think the one character that I have fallen in love with, but at the same time, it took me a second, was Holly Hunter as Captain Ake, in that she is presented as this almost reluctant captain, right? And she is an educator and a captain, and she has these dual roles. And she is, whip smart and very wise because she's 424 years old. But she has a unique style in many ways, from the way she talks, the way she interacts with other people, the way she sits in the captain's chair. She's just unlike any other captain we've seen before. And although sometimes she falls into the, shields up and all the usual stuff, but the rest of it, and I wonder, how you guys feel about her and how you think some other fans are going to feel about Captain Ake.
Well, so I love it. I love her choices. And and when we play the interview with her, we talk about her physicality in some of those choices, because I feel like there's an evolution there in terms of you can still have authority. Like my friend Cleveland described her as folksy. And I was like, right, she has a folksy style, but she has complete authority at the same time. But right. I do think, and Anne-Marie said something which I'm going to make her repeat because you'd said it to me before and I thought it was so insightful. Actually, I think you maybe even said it on our podcast last week, but so what? But I was talking to the Sci-Fi Sisters about her because Yvette comes from a military background, and there's just that they were more put off by it initially, and it took longer for them to get used to it. So I do think that a lot of people are going to react that way. But Anne-Marie, there was something you said, I thought, about her style versus Janeway's and why it was important that she is the way she is.
Yeah. So I wanted to go in being like, I always have a hard time warming up to casts and new captains, and I didn't really know anything about her. And she won me over immediately, and I really identify with her. I just thought, like, she's compared to Janeway, who had to always have her hair perfect, and there was the infamous, like, hair battle, and she's always so buttoned up and wearing heels, so she's really tall. Like, all of these things, it has to, like, be the way she speaks is very calculated. All of these things to be taken seriously as a female in the 90s. And now we have this captain who is 5'2", and not only do they not have her in heeled boots, but she's barefoot, which really speaks to me because I hate wearing closed-toed shoes. And she just like has so much authority. Oftentimes her hair is not perfect. And because she's busy like doing her own thing. And also, why does her hair have to be perfect? Like, men don't have to do that. And then
can you remember how perfect Seven's hair was in all of Picard? Like salon fresh.
Yes. Like, do you know how long it takes to make your hair salon fresh?
Right.
Like,
I mean, if you knew, like, I just have to dwell on this for a second because they do it on TV shows with, it's a detective. And then her hair obviously took an hour and a half to do and obviously had to be done by a professional. And you're like, it doesn't look natural. And I agree with you about Holly.
I absolutely love it. And I love the way she just is so comfortable in in her skin. And I felt like when I was a surgeon, it was just constant. How am I speaking? How am I presenting myself? What does my makeup look like? What does my hair look like? Instead of like, obviously, what I want to be doing is focusing on the job, which I love. So I just feel like having a woman in authority who is this badass and also just free in her own skin, and she doesn't give a shit what other people are like projecting onto her because she knows she's so amazing at her job, and she is. I love that, and I love as the episodes go by seeing her like her relationships with old friends. She clearly is just like a very kind, like bottomless empathy, so thoughtful, always a next step ahead, likes to have fun. Just I personally like couldn't love her more. And what I love about Star Trek is that different captains speak to everybody and all of them have their amazing points. But it's amazing that like right when I started watching this, I was like, oh my gosh, I found my captain. I love her.
The sense I get, I mean, one of the things you might have thought about the show, and I was concerned about this as well, is that they're going to kind of take the Harry Potter format. And so it's really going to be like 70, 80% the kids. And then every once in a while you get an interaction with an adult character. But Holly really is the star of the show. Caleb is kind of the co-star, I guess, or Caleb, which is Sandra Rosta. And, you know, she's all over this thing for sure. There's a lot more Holly than I thought there was going to be. There's less Paul than I want, but that's only because I want him on screen all the time.
Right.
Some of the cadet characters, as I understand it, like you really were waiting for their big episode.
Yes. So far out of the 6, we've seen, you know, half of them, maybe, you know, 4 out of the 6 main ones, or almost 5 really have strong stuff where we get to where we focus on them for a while.
Like there are 2 episodes where I would describe each of them as like this character's episode, this character's episode, the way we used to, like where like one of the characters gets an A episode that they're carrying. And I'm like, the show also is doing a brilliant job with like A plots, B plots, C plots.
It's amazing.
And weaving everything. It's so brilliant. And like the fact that we know all of these cadets and you haven't even met them all. Like more come throughout the season. And you'll meet like other people who seem like they're being set up to be some sort of recurring character.
Cadets who keep coming back, that we see them. Yeah.
Yeah. Or aliens or whatever. And like, honestly, like the show also has made me like Discovery more. Like Admiral Vance, the second you see him interacting with Holly Hunter, you're like, wow, this is like this loving, beautiful side where he really cares about like nurturing future Starfleet. And then I also have to say, like, the guy who's the head of the War College, he's phenomenal. And just a life hack, make sure you're following him on Instagram, Raul Beneja, because he's a soul singer. And Bob Picardo went and did some like guest sets in Toronto. Blues singer, and it's amazing. They do duets in this nightclub. It's on Raul Beneja's Instagram, so make sure you check that out.
So getting back to the Harry Potter thing, it is an interesting, the War College versus because we saw like elements of that, you'd see signage for the War College in the trailer, so it's no spoiler that it's part of this whole thing, and essentially It reminds me this kind of rivalry thing. I mean, on one hand, you could say it's like the houses within Harry Potter, but it kind of reminds me of the Mako Starfleet thing on Enterprise.
Well, so that's an aspect of it that I don't love, frankly. Like the rivalry to me feels this would be the harshest critique I probably have, other than the shiny floors and the bright lights, which are driving me bonkers. Which is that I feel like sometimes it feels like adults writing for kids, and it is a rivalry where I don't care about that rivalry. And what I will say is that even though there were whole setups where I was like, oh, with the rivalry again, there's a payoff coming.
Yes.
There's a payoff coming that turns that just explains why they had to set it up that way and rewards you for sticking with it.
Well, I haven't gotten there, but the way I look at it is, if there is one big thing about this show, if there is one theme about this show, it is about a young generation taking on solving the world from the problems created by the last generation. That's really what this show is about, I think. It's an allegory for global warming and all sorts of stuff. But
talk about the right time for a show like that.
Yeah. So the War College is a function of the way things were run during the burn, basically. And mistakes were made during the burn, et cetera. And they talk about that a lot. In fact, the whole Holly Hunter thing with Caleb and all of that is all about, because Holly Hunter can remember the good old days of when the Federation was fantastic and Starfleet was the coolest and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So much of this show is about trying to get back to those great themes, which is very Star Trek themes of optimism and hope, because those were lost during the burn. People lost hope. People lost their optimism. And to me, the War College is an example of that. They, because just things got harsh and they had to get more militaristic during the burn. That's the sense I get of where they're going with that.
Yeah.
And it could be like annoying and go on too long, but like the show is like exceeding it, doing like beyond all of my expectations. It stops being like, it ends that annoying part where it's like, if it went on too long, it'd be hitting you over the head. I feel like that dissipates, and I'm actually like really intrigued by it now. It didn't take a full season to get to that level, or 2 seasons, so I love that.
And also, again, prime time to be looking at what's happening in the background.
Yes.
There is a buildup of a story. I'm not going to say what it is. There is a buildup of something happening. And when I did ask one of the actors about it, he had to consult to see if he could talk about it, and he couldn't.
There is a lot of stuff happening in the background, and some of it is Easter eggy, like, on orientation day, you walk by and there's the Parisi Squares team,
right?
Oh my gosh,
but some of it is important, and they because there's just they really do start just throwing Easter eggs in. The Hoshi Sato gets mentioned. There's the James T. Kirk Pavilion. We've seen a lot of this stuff in the trailers.
Talax Firefly.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's tons of aliens from classic Star Trek, and from all the shows, and from
some
the
done
movie.
better than others.
Yeah, the makeup is for the most part fantastic, but you never know. But it isn't member berries. Like there's sometimes where they do some some things, and as I understand in some of the episodes coming up, where it's important what they're doing in the background, and then it comes into in the foreground. But you don't need. I think the thing is, they're always making sure you don't need to know these things. We don't need to know. I mean, how could you not know who James T. Kirk is? But you may not know who Hoshi Sato is, but we get it, and it matters to us. And I think those things are woven in fairly organically for the most part.
Yep, totally. Nothing is like, oh, look, we did an Easter egg. See, we know Star Trek. It's like, no, we actually understand Star Trek and know what is like. I mean, an example from the pilot is just like, obviously the Doctor loves opera. I love that that's still a part of his being and trying to understand humanity through the lens of opera. Like they understand it's not just a throwaway joke. Like, haha, see, we mentioned the Doctor loves opera. Like all of that is just, it's so well
and
done.
6 episodes in, I haven't seen a Tribble yet.
See, exactly.
Oh, true.
Which I can, even though I love the Trouble with Tribbles, but they way overdid it with the damn Tribbles everywhere, and now we don't see any, and I'm like, that's good.
Although they did do the deflector dish saves the day, because you just can't. What can't a deflector dish do? It really.
I know.
It can do everything.
It's like the Swiss Army knife of Star Trek.
But I think that's great, actually. That was a smart thing to put in there, because you're like, again, just enough for, as an older Star Trek fan. Like, I like seeing those things again. It's nice. I don't need the shout outs as much, but those elements show that they do know their Star Trek. They really do. I mean, like you've got Kirsten Beyer and Tawny Newsome in that writing team. So there's going to be stuff that makes sense and honors it rather than just as a throwaway.
Now, I can't say I love the ship. I mean, it's interesting. It's overly complicated. It's too shiny. There's just it's
glowy. It's
the random lights blinking.
How would you work with a bright, thin neon light, like millions of them everywhere? Would drive me completely nuts. I'd be like, could we just turn those off and have normal human person lighting?
But as a ship nerd, I want to love the ship. So I'm still waiting for it to grow on me. I don't dislike it. I mean, and it's ridiculously large on the inside, because that's kind of the point, I guess, is that it's a flying building. Now, it is the 32nd century. They can pretty much do everything because technology is magic by that point. So I'm curious to see how people react to the ship. Is it going to become beloved? Who knows?
It's starting to really grow on me because as the pin, like the combat shape, I think it's so pretty. I like everything. The more I'm watching it, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like falling in love with all of it. And the other thing that really surprised me was actually like the staff, like the teaching staff, and seeing them interact both on the ship, but also like, it's no surprise. Well, surprise compared to like some of the Star Trek we've had recently, but no surprise compared to like our like golden age of Trek. They're starting to have dinner together in their like quarters, and these scenes where you see the academic instructors kind of like reflecting on their day and also having like interpersonal relationships. Like, it's just that part of things I had not expected. I had expected it to just be through the lens of the cadets interacting, like a Saved by the Bell style. So that was a really, really nice surprise for me.
I can't relate to Saved by the Bell style because I never to watch that show. But
me either. But I get it.
But I think a lot of my favorite scenes are ones with a mix of cadets and faculty. Like, they're just, and you're right, they do keep mixing up who's with who, which is fantastic.
So what's your favorite dynamic chemistry on the show? What two characters? I mean, I love seeing Carice. I love seeing Sam and the Doctor.
I love Sam and anybody.
Amazing.
Right.
Yes.
Sam and anybody is
so
great.
Hilarious when she's like, will you be my mentor?
And will you be my friend? And she's like, it's just, I always think about like when you're in kindergarten and you go up to just randos and people are like, do you want to be my friend? Because it's like your first, and then I remember this girl sizing me up and being like, no, but,
that's okay. Or Laurie for me.
So, I made other friends. It worked out. It was a long time ago. But I feel like her with anybody is pretty great. Holly with anybody is pretty great. But I'm trying to think of other, who's popping a little bit for me, even though she has not been front and center, as Bella Shepherd. Because her character, we've all seen the clip where she's like, I want to be captain. I have to be captain. She's very captainly already. You can see the foundation of a captain in her. And they give her moments with each person in an interesting way.
She seems to me, so her character's name is Genesis Life. It's almost like in every scene she's in, she knows something that no one else knows. Yeah. She's working on a different level than everyone else, but she's still relatable. So no, I think she has a really great dynamic with Caleb and keeping him honest, because he's, and Durham, who's the kind of the jerk character, because both of them need someone to set them right in different ways, because both of them have serious issues, and she's so wise beyond her years kind of person that she's good at keeping them honest, I think. So one thing I've liked so far is they haven't, like, it's, everyone's like, oh, it's going to be all kids and stupid romance and stuff like that. And there's hints of that here and there, and there will be, there is a romance between it's in the trailers, but, that's Discovery was a lot sappier than this show, from what I could tell. I mean, would you guys agree with that?
Yes. And like, I actually watch Star Trek for the shipping and the relationships. Like, that's literally why I've always been into it. And like, and when I was talking about like the sexually explicit scene, it's not like I want all of this to be happening. It's just that like when it's actually on screen in such detail, it makes it hard to watch with like multiple generations. But I love it. And like, I did expect it to be a lot more OCE. And I would say like, that's not like the relationships aren't as in your face like a teen WB drama or CW drama. And also there are other hints of like Holly Hunter in past relationships, or maybe like a hint something could develop. And I love that kind of thing in Star Trek. And also just like the friendships. Like I love like at some like I love the roommate situations that start to develop. And a character that no one has really gotten that into yet is the brother of the Beta Z
He's
girl.
Great.
The Betazoid girl. Caleb,
very funny.
Or not Caleb, I don't know his name. He's hilarious. He's such a standout to me.
I will actually, that reminded me, there's one gripe I have, which is the one thing I think they do in that young person show vein is they have a couple of they're not even side characters because you might not even remember their names, but there's one who's like jittery and there's one who's nerdy, and they look too typically like in any show that you made now who you would pick to be the nerdy one that people have some attitude about. And I wish that they'd flipped that and done something different and not been like, this is the guy they're going to make fun of. Like, you shouldn't be able to look at someone physically. Like so I didn't love their choices for who's the one who freaks out and who's the one who's too dorky and whatever. And I wish that they'd chosen to, because it's Star Trek. We're all nerds. We're going to identify, as soon as you call someone a nerd and make fun of them, we're going to identify with that person.
Right.
So I thought that.
I immediately was like, oh, that's the key one.
Like that. I thought those choices weren't great.
But I love the scenes just among the friends, like sort of in like everyday life. It's very Jake and Nagi in a really cute, in a really sweet
And you know what?
way.
Like, we were talking about the YA vibe last night or the other night, and I was like, you know what? I watch Percy Jackson. Are you guys watching that show at all?
No, but that's explicitly YA.
It's specifically YA, but it's not about relationships. Like, it's not about hookups. It's just because kids have really strong feelings and interesting ways of expressing them. And I've always liked that. So that doesn't scare me off at all, you know? And it also probably, I mean, does it help that I have a 22-year-old and an 18-year-old at home? Probably. I mean, they don't watch it. They don't want to watch Star Trek with me.
Yes.
Well, we'll see. I asked my youngest, I was like, if I wanted to show you this show to see what you thought, she's like, no.
Come on, I show my little nephew Scouts to see his reaction.
What was his reaction?
He liked it, but I don't know how we would ever find it on YouTube, like amongst all the clutter.
Exactly.
So zooming out, we've been talking about this show for 2 or 3 years, right? And you and I would always say, I'm cautiously optimistic. I haven't seen any red flags. But but there were things that were worrying us, the YA aspect certainly and other things. So would you guys say there's anything where you're like, I knew this was going to be a problem and it is a problem, or the opposite of like, oh, that's not a problem. Even though I was worried this was going to be a problem.
Well, so Ryan Husk on Seventh Rule, and we work at Creation together. He's always like, yeah, but when I like gush about a show, he's like, yeah, but you always say you like everything. And so for this one, he's like, yeah, well, I won't really believe it till I see it. And I'm like, no, I'm telling you, like, it's like I also was going into this with like no expectations at all, or worried it would be bad, and then that'd be bad for the fandom. Sort of like not that I don't love the people who were on Section 31, but like I don't think it's good to start having like multiple situations like that. For the longevity of Star Trek, especially with the merger change and everything. But yeah, so when I saw this, I was like, honestly, a lot of the other shows that have been coming out lately, I love it because it's Star Trek. I don't know that I would love it if I didn't love Star Trek so much. And this one, I feel like it's a legitimately great show. I never am looking at the timer And there's so many like cute moments that make me chuckle, and I feel like I'm smiling the whole show.
And for me, the Holly Hunter aspect is so tremendous. I mean, I've been a fan of hers. Anyone who listens to this podcast knows that I'm nuts for her. She brings so much to every moment that she's in, and every scene that she's in, and every weird thing that we learn about her. And the only things that are the red flags for me are things I knew it would echo Discovery's style, not just in the production design, which I don't always. We've already talked about the lights and the floors, but also the way it's filmed. Like, I do find the overuse of camera movement still, it bothers me. And it's not, I do have a personal motion problem that can amplify it and make it harder for me to watch. But when I have days where I'm not experiencing that as much, I still find it too much. And I still wish that they would show me where everybody is in relation to everybody else in the room, because I want to get it's like an old fashioned establishing shot is what I want. I want to get a sense of where is everybody and how far away are they from each other and what is this room? And a lot of times with the constant camera movement, I don't get that. And there's just too much movement. I'm like, let me look at something for longer.
Right.
So that was a red flag from Discovery that they carried over.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just, we're out of date. These.
Well, it's not on my other shows that I watch. I watch a lot of contemporary shows.
That's true. That's true.
Or like, is it out of date for like sci-fi?
I went into this cautiously optimistic, and I'm still optimistic. I like what I've seen. Most importantly, I like the characters. And, there's certain characters where you're supposed to not like them, but I like what they're doing with that character.
Yes.
There's mysteries, like, okay, there's something going on with that guy. I want to know more about that. Because that, for me, when I'm watching a show, I like a good mystery. I like a good theory article.
I know you do.
Because you're saying this stuff in the background. I'm the kind of guy who notices that stuff. And I'm looking for that stuff in the background saying, okay, what's his story? So they know to do that without overdoing it. So, this would be on my watch list if I weren't running a Star Trek website, for sure.
I'll tell you this, it's very Star Trek. It just is. There's obviously every Star Trek is Star Trek. Some is good Star Trek and some is bad. But that thing that you look for in your heart where you go, what is it to me? And we know it's different for everybody. I think this absolutely is whatever your thing is that makes Star Trek to you. I think you're going to see it.
Yeah, there's the writing. The writer's room is like clearly operating on a whole other level. And as is the cast, like they both have caught lightning in a bottle in a really amazing, very Star Trek way.
And the dialogue is strong. Like, remember the first season of Discovery had great dialogue.
Great
and
dialogue.
Then it kind of got, just it was never as sharp and as good as it was that first season. But this show has brought back great dialogue.
So, you and I are going to be reviewing in depth and spoilers and everything every week. So, in the coming 4 weeks, like, I'm going to say, episode 2 didn't do it for me as much as episode 1 when we get to episode 2. It's interesting, but a little flat for me. But are we going to come to an episode 3, 4, 5, or 6 where you're going to go, this one, because, we just went through season 3 of Strange New Worlds, and there was a few in there that, Laurie, you were like, you actively disliked on many levels, So did anything at that level or even close to that level from the 6 episodes, would you say?
Of disliking, you mean?
Yeah.
How about this? On my first watch, I didn't like an episode that I, on my second watch, loved. So that's funny. But I will say, I think probably the weakest, there are weaker ones for sure. I think 3 is probably the weakest.
Interesting.
For me.
Anne-Marie?
I typically prefer the quote unquote weaker episodes that everybody else rates lower, which makes me run IMDb and 10 them all just to give them justice. So in my opinion, like none. They were all like, for me, it's like running it all like on all cylinders. Like when there's a little more action, I'm kind of like, but it never lasts for that long. And even I will say like that pirate aspect, do we need more space pirates? Even though it's Paul Giamatti, so the answer for me would always be yes. It gets like so much more complex.
Yes.
Because I know like people were a little skeptical when they dropped that trailer that had some of the pilot like interaction, which was great, but it was a little bit like just run of the mill piratey. But no, it just, they really, all of their skills and talent are on full display, and it gets much more like layered and phenomenal. So yeah, none of them are weak, and some of them are like up there with my all-time favorites of Star Trek.
I could use less punching, I would just like to say. There's too much punching.
You don't like that in any Star Trek show.
I don't like punching ever. I don't want punching. I just don't want it. So I don't like punching.
Star Trek has always had a lot of punching from the beginning. I know.
But see, Kirk Fu was so much fun. The way that Shatner fought, I never was bored. Yes. Except with Finnegan. You know what? With Finnegan, I was bored. When he and Finnegan were literally just punching each other, I was super bored. But every other fight Kirk had, he was flipping around and flipping on his back and flipping back over and karate chopping. And I just loved it. It was so stagey and fun. But the actual just hard, thunky punching, I don't want in any movie or show I ever watch.
What I will say too, though, like that reminded me, because I was like, well, even during those TOS like weird fight scenes, there'd be the great score underneath. Like the score of this is like outstanding, and I'm watching. I'm like, wow, this is a really great music cue, and it's like finding its own feet in addition to callbacks. I really like it, and I like the theme.
They do a lot of callbacks. It is Jeff Russo who scored Discovery. It feels you could feel the Discovery in the music, I feel, but it has its own style.
Some very fresh aspects, which also just like some of the parts of the show feel very fresh to me, and I would say like overall very life affirming.
The music is very active. I mean, they know when to ramp it up for you to feel a moment, but they don't do it to where you have like you're like I'm not, because sometimes when the music is so emotional and you're not feeling that emotion, you feel manipulated. I think this show has it right.
Right. I have in my notes things like jaunty music. And then a thing happens and someone's bopping down the hallway. So there's that. They also use songs, like actual songs. That's a very modern touch. And I don't know how people are going to feel about that, but I just think, well, as you just said, Tony, it's a modern touch. So
one thing that I was concerned about is I knew that the show would have messages, and I've talked about some of those, but I was concerned the show would be preachy and overtly political. Even from the 2 episodes I've seen, there are some issues it takes on, contemporary issues.
Yes.
But it didn't feel heavy-handed. It wasn't a Discovery level waving it in your face, it just was there. There was one phrase they used in the first episode, which I felt like was a little too contemporary, where they wanted to make sure you get what we're doing here.
You know what? I was glad, because I feel so strongly about that. And I was like, the more we talk about that, the better. But I think the trick that they did, I'm not going to give anything away, is that instead of having the character you like pointing the finger at somebody else and saying you did a bad thing, it's a character you like pointing a finger at themselves and saying, I made the wrong choice.
Yeah.
And that takes the preachy out of it, because it's someone who's examining their own behavior, and the pointing fingers and judging other people is a huge problem in our culture right now, and could sometimes turn up on Star Trek like that. And this was even like Next Gen used to do it too. Oh, those people with their petty ways of fighting and silliness. But this is like, we all have the capacity to go either way. And I think that's a big running theme of this show.
But Star Trek should have a point of view. It should take on contemporary issues.
And it does.
And this show does. So but they didn't overdo it. And that is certainly a concern, I think, for the show, is it's going to be overtly political and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think they're pulling their punches, because there's another group of people who think that the show is going to try to shy away from that. And I don't think it's doing that either, from what I've seen.
I think it follows like the humanistic line, the way like TOS used to. And I agree with Laurie, like also self like reflection. I love seeing that because it's such an important thing. I also love like the number one character, Gina Yashere. She said on
Yes,
the
it's
blue carpet,
Yashere.
it's like a Klingon Yashere. Like she's amazing. But she was saying, like, I love her character because she's half Jem'Hadar, half Klingon, and is very much into her like cultural heritage. And there's obviously like at some point she's talking to the Klingon student and talking about their culture. And I just love that like we haven't seen any like this culture's bad. This culture like they need to change their it's a lot about like living with your heritage and making choices that fit yourself and everyone can get along beautifully and embracing your differences to learn from each other, which is what I love the most about Star
And
Trek.
when people don't get along beautifully, they're learning from those interactions. Like they're very revealing interactions and people learn.
So I think, we've talked a lot about something without saying a lot of details. And I do worry that people are going to be listening to this going, I wish I'd seen it and I wish I knew more about it because we're skirting around things because we're trying to avoid major spoilers. Next week, of course, we're going to dive into the first 2 episodes in 2 separate podcasts. So I think we've kind of covered it. We like it. I think it's working. Early reviews have been generally positive from what I've seen.
I've seen so many good reviews.
Yeah. From mainstream. Mm-hmm. There's some issues certainly, but and I've seen some reviewers who like hated like Strange New Worlds and some of the other modern shows giving it positive reviews, which surprised me. So I think it's going to get off to a good start. We'll see if they get that TikTok audience or not. But I think for now, we should probably wrap things up because we've been running for a while. Mm-hmm. We haven't talked about this. This was a big topic from our last couple podcasts, but 2026 is a pivotal year for Star Trek TV because of business stuff. Alex Kurtzman's contract is coming up this year, and we have an article on this site. He's actually talking about his apparently he goes in next month. He's directing the season 2 finale of Academy, and after that, he's going to have the big discussions. But apparently, Chris Parnell, who's kind of his boss, he's in charge of streaming originals, was at the event speaking positively about the show.
There is a level of confidence at this screening that I haven't seen at any of the other screenings.
A lot of Paramount executives were at that event. Now, David Ellison wasn't there, but like a lot of people who know David Ellison were there. And so, and Chris Parnell, you can see him on the red carpet. He's a huge Star Trek fan. It's obviously, he's a very important person now for Star Trek. And if he likes the show, then it possibly has a future if it gets the numbers it has to get. And Alex Kurtzman possibly has a future with Paramount.
Yeah, I was surprised when I read that article because I didn't realize that he's having meetings with them about the future of Star Trek. And he makes it clear that he knows it might not be him and things could change, but that it's also, I have been ruling out that he was going to stay. And I feel like that may have been premature.
It was good to see the reaction.
I mean, I still think it's possible that they make some major adjustments because of what they're doing on the movie side, and they may want to emphasize the movie side. But the assumption that he's out and it's over, it's probably, I mean, certainly I think, you have to keep an eye on Academy because they'd be stupid if it's working with fans and or general audiences, then you're going to keep it going.
I really want the show to get the 7 years. I mean, I know that's not a thing anymore. And five is the new 7 and 2 might be the new 5.
Alex has talked about 4 years because it's schools last 4 years, and that would, and then they could look at spinoffs if that works out for them when people go off to become captains or whatever, or not captains, but junior officers. But more than 2.
One thing that I feel like is giving me some hope. So like, I'm always like, well, it's behind Paramount Plus. It's kind of more on the expensive end. Why do you get Paramount Plus? And like, what's very apparent from walking in Times Square, but also like talking to especially men of a certain age, like UFC's now on Paramount, which is a massive change, which means there are a lot more subscribers coming, like that coincides with Academy. So hopefully like more family households where people will be watching this.
Yeah. But the younger people, I mean, there are some shows that appeal to young people on Paramount Plus. It's a pretty diverse streamer. So hopefully they're running those promos in front of all the right shows. And
I assume they'll do, as they've done in the past, throw the first episode on YouTube or Pluto or somewhere where people can see it who don't have it. Because I think they might be able to lure some people in.
Yeah, that's been, I mean, they do that with all their shows, like Land Man. And that's just kind of a Paramount Plus thing. So I'd be surprised if they didn't do it. Usually they do it like a week after the premiere, I think. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Anne-Marie, you are always welcome.
Thank you so much. I love hanging out with you guys.
For sure.
Such a pleasure.
Yeah, I love having you on.
And Laurie, congratulations on a successful blue carpet junket.
God, you were such an android.
Yeah. That was crazy. I have never had a thicker stack of index cards. Let me tell you. The thing about the the blue carpet, any carpet, is that you and Tony, I know you've experienced this. Like, you have this huge list of anybody who might be there. And hopefully you've had enough of a sense that you've prepped and you have questions for everybody, but you don't know who's coming or in what order. And when it's a new show, you don't always recognize it. I mean, in this case, I recognized all the on-camera people, and you're just trying to juggle, and you're very nervous when you're talking to one person. Like, Paul Giamatti was so close to me on the carpet. He was the person right next to me, and then he was whisked away. And then, and I'll be talking to someone and I'm waiting. I see Olatunde coming and I'm like, oh, I want to make sure I get him. So they're like, oh, do you want to talk to Bill Nye? And I'm like, sorry, no. And then because again, I'm Trek movie and I'm trying to get Star Trek news and information. And when they say Michelle Hurd, I say yes. And I grab Michelle Hurd also because I have a particular love of Michelle Hurd, which she now knows.
But if I remember, like, you were ready, we had questions for Stephen Colbert, but I don't remember prepping for Michelle Hurd, actually.
I didn't prep for Michelle Hurd, so I didn't know. I got there and I just made something up, and it actually, she's so wonderful.
And you said you overheard her saying after the premiere.
Yeah,
that
I sat next to her and her sister. Which, if you looked at her sister, you'd be like, "Are you Michelle Hurd's sister?" If you just saw her by herself anywhere, like Patrick Stewart's brother, I remember seeing once, and you're like, "Yeah, that's your." So, but they loved it. They had a great time. But I mean, because I had a heads up that Kate was coming, we'd talked about Kate, and I had a heads up that Tani might be there before. Thank God, because I rewatched her episode very closely so that I could ask her stuff, and I'm really glad I did. But yeah, there were people that were surprises there that I didn't know were coming. And it's so hectic and stressful and exciting and terrifying. And then I'm always terrified the camera didn't record anything. And there's just so much going on. I didn't get to talk to David Ajala. I've never met him. I've only done Zoom junket things with him. So I still haven't met him. I didn't get to talk to Mary Wiseman. It was just crazy. But yeah, when I saw
David Ajala on the live feed, I'm like, I was so happy for you. I'm like, Laurie's going to talk to, and then I started thinking, is she going to be able to control herself? So
here's what happened after I'd burned the Sci-Fi Sisters for Carice Brooks, and I felt so bad about that. I was like, but you guys were hugging David Ajala, and you did not introduce him to me, and I've never met him in person, and they felt so bad. So we were even then, but yeah, I did not get to, touch the arm of David Ajala, which has to be just a goal of mine. I just watched his first Law and Order episode.
Oh. Okay, well, this is becoming one of those goodbyes. So let's just say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.